The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com. The Dice Tower, episode 507.
Set collection.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Tom and I are joined by Mandi Hutchinson to discuss some recent games played, present a karmic tale of gaming, answer questions from the mailbag about humidity, storage, learning new games, and more, and Tom gets a little surly as we present our top 10 set collection games. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Mylar bag of board gaming, Tom Vassell.
What does that mean?
It means that you are a critical element of collecting. You keep everyone in mint condition.
I don't think anyone has ever been called a bag as a compliment.
Well, then you can be the first. You're a pioneer as well as a Mylar bag.
Eric, you are a champion of insulting people nicely.
Thank you?
Or not nicely? I'm confused. Hey, folks. Welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Tom Vassell.
Hi there. I'm Eric Summerer.
And we're here to talk about board games, but Eric and I are not the only ones here. Today, we have Mandi Hutchinson. Welcome to the show, Mandi.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Hey, yes. And so Mandi is on, well, lots of different shows and lots of different things. Let's see. What are you on? You're on Board Game Breakfast, on our video channel. What else do you do in the board gaming world?
So I have my own YouTube channel called To Die For Games, and I also do Twitch live streams with To Die For Games, and I'm also on the Instagamers Network, which is also another YouTube channel with a group of other contributors. I'm also on the Favorite Fridays, which show up on your channel as well.
I think everyone in existence is on those Favorite Game Fridays at this point.
That's right. It's popular. It's great.
Well, folks, first of all, let's get some things out of the way. First of all, if you're listening to our show and you want to be part of a Slack channel where you can talk to everybody else and be involved in that, all you have to do is email us at dicetower@gmail.com, and I'll issue you an invite where you can join that channel. Secondly, Dice Tower Cruise. Eric, are you going?
I am going.
That's right, and so am I. And so are hundreds of other fun gamers, but we still have spots for you. If you want to come on the cruise, you can sign up at dicetowercruise.com. Now listen, folks, I'm not kidding. There are many great conventions over the course of the year. Not only is this the most fun, but it is the most cost-effective convention. When you pay for the cruise, you're done. You can, of course, go buy ice cream if you want to, but you don't need to. Because I learned something. When you're at the meals on the cruise and they bring you the dessert menu, you don't have to choose. You can literally say, I
like
want
one
them
of
all.
each.
I have not done that, but I have chosen 3.
Wow.
So, I'm just saying. And so and there's a lot of people have been asking me, they're like, yeah, I want to come, but my spouse doesn't game much. But really, we had a lot of non-gaming significant others on the trip. Mm-hmm. And they had just as much fun. They came to the game shows, and then they went and did everything else on the cruise. And most of the people who came did not game the whole time. I didn't game the whole time. Did you, Eric?
No. I certainly explored, took a walk, took an extra meal, that sort of thing.
An extra meal, you said?
Well, there's that buffet on the front of the ship, and you could just go and get food, then go get more food.
Right. And what's really fun about this, folks, is when you sit in the dining room at night, and we have like a section just for the gamers, and so you come and sit there, and when you sit at the table with these people, you know, I'm kind of an extrovert, so I'll talk to pretty much anybody, but let's say you're not, or let's say you are an extrovert, you're like, what can we talk about? You now have something to talk about. Games.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the conversation will probably flow to other things, but you have that beginning. I also found that most of these people are quite nice.
Yes.
There was this Eric guy, but everyone else was fantastic.
You guys are making me jealous. I've never been.
We're not making you jealous. We are trying to get you to come. It is still very possible.
Well, you had me at buffet, so I'm contemplating it.
But it's really a fantastic, amazing time, and you will probably get your money's worth back, possibly. That's all I'll say. Okay, what? So this week of us posting the show is the UK Games Expo, and myself and Sam and Z will be there. We will take pictures for Eric of England and London and all that.
Please do.
If you're there, folks, please come by our booth. We have promos. We'd love to come and, even if you don't want the promos, that's fine. Just come by and say hi to us. Come to our shows. We're doing a Wits and Wagers show. We are doing a top 5 list with the folks from No Pun Included. We are doing a live Q&A and just generally hanging out and playing games. And in 2 weeks, or no, I'm sorry, I guess it's 3 weeks, right?
It's sooner than I think, yes.
2 weeks we'll be at Origins.
What?
And this Eric will be at.
I will.
And we're going to be live streaming from there, so you'll be able to see us on video, live streaming, or if you're there, just come by, and we will also have promos there. And not just a few promos, we'll have promos coming out of our ears. To be clear, these are not the promos that are in our Indiegogo campaign this year. Those promos will be sent out hopefully in late June, but we want to send those out to people before we have them at conventions. So these are leftover promos from before, but they're amazing.
Are you saying that people at conventions are not people?
No, that's not what I said.
You said you wanted to send them out to people first, and then you could take them to conventions to sell to robots, I guess.
I have my Eric Summoner figure here.
Ooh.
Do you have that yet? Did you get the one at Gamma?
I got a prototype demo version. It's not in the package. It's just a standalone figure. The package looks cool.
So wait now, what is this? What are you guys talking about?
So there's a promo figure for Zombicide Black Plague, and he is a necromancer named Eric, spelled with a K, Summoner. And if you look closely, he's holding a staff that looks like a microphone.
I love the quote on the back.
You guys are going to have to send a visual of this.
Yeah, I tweeted the back of the box. The quote says something like, I bring pestilence and plagues to the nearby towns. No, I bring the undead or whatever to nearby towns, especially the people who plague them.
Why do I picture Eric saying that?
And he's saying it politely as he's destroying people. His special ability, if you played Zombicide Black Plague, his special ability is he's essentially a portal. When he walks, he spawns people from where he's at.
Ooh.
Basically cool. Summoning them with his beautiful melodious voice, I suppose.
I knew it. The voice was coming.
Wreak havoc.
Absolutely.
And our last bit of announcements, as of 2 days ago, Sunday, today's Tuesday, when this is posted anyway, the Gen Con event grid has gone live.
What?
So you can sign up for 2 different events there. Me and Derek and Jeremy Salinas from Man vs. Meeple are doing a thing where we're talking about editing video and giving tips and tricks if you want to come see that. And then we're doing the Dice Tower live show. And if you were at it last year, I thought it went okay.
It did okay.
It was. See, it's hard to call our own show like spectacular, amazing, but it was pretty fun.
It was highly adequate.
Everyone and anyone who's part of the Dice Tower is at this show. Not really, but a lot of Dice Tower people are at this show. Okay, one last announcement. I forgot. Origins. Our live show at Origins is 8:30 Saturday night. You don't need a ticket. It's right around the corner from registration. We'll have a sign at our booth that reminds you of this. And yes, Origins doesn't have it on their schedule yet, which is shocking, except for the shocking part. So, we're done with that. I've been talking too much. We're going to let Mandi start. Tell us a game that you've played recently.
Well, we just did actually a live streaming of the game Wizards of the Wild. So have you played this one?
You have me beat here. It sounds like a wizard who controls animals.
Yeah, I haven't played either.
You haven't? Okay, so this was new to me too, actually. A friend taught it to me, and it's very cool. So basically you're animals and you're battling using magical powers, and you do that with dice that have different things. You can get skulls, which are definitely not good for you. You can bribe the acolyte in order to gain points. So you're trying to kind of engine building type game. So you're trying to get as many of those magical cards as you can to assist you with the win. And there's even a really cool Harry Potter-esque wand.
Well, the artwork looks good.
Oh, you're checking it out. Yeah, it's super. It's light, but I mean, it's played in like 30 minutes. I mean, it's a good lunchtime game. But I had a really great time with it. I'm actually thinking of backing the Kickstarter.
Oh, so this is not published yet?
This one is published, but they have an expansion out now, or on the Kickstarter.
Huh. And so it's from this company called Crosscut Games.
That is correct.
And I don't believe I played any other games. I see Deadline. Oh, no, Galactic Emperor. I played that one. And Ninjato. They must be republishing those, though.
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with the other ones, but this one was the first one for me from Crosscut Games.
What about you, sir? Summoner.
Well, first up for me is a game called Honshu, which is from Renegade Games. It's sort of a tile-laying, bidding and drafting game. The core of the game is these 60 cards, numbered 1 through 60, and they're like a 2x3 grid of spaces, and those spaces can contain desert or city or forest or lakes or factories which accept goods and production spaces which produce goods. And you'll have a bunch of these in your hand, and you will, in turn order, play one to the table, and you can also add a resource that you've acquired previously to add 60 to the total of your bid. But you take the number on that card, and that's sort of your bid. But you can add 60 to it by spending a resource. You go around the table one time, and then whoever had the highest number gets to draft from those cards that got placed first, and then adding that to their tableau. It's pretty liberal building rules, too. Like you can, you have to overlay or stick under at least one square on the card that you're adding. But it can go over, it can go under, you can tuck a whole bunch of spaces under. I think the only thing you can't do is cover up lakes. But it gives you a lot of options for positioning these things. And each different type of space is eventually going to score in different ways. The cities, you want to make one large city. The forests just earn you points. The lakes, you need to have at least 2 big, but then they're worth like 3 points per space. All sorts of stuff. The production spaces, you're trying to get the cubes onto factories, matching up the production spaces with the factories. You continue this for 12 rounds. There's also a bit of a passing aspect where you play the first 3 cards from your hand of 6, then pass them to your neighbor. And then after those are gone, you'll get another hand of 6, play those 3, and then pass to the other neighbor. And then the game's over. After 12 rounds, you see who has the best village, more or less. I enjoyed it. It certainly has novel mechanisms. I don't know if I was totally enamored with it, though. The way the bidding works with this, you've got the turn order, and if you go first, you know very little about what you're bidding on. You're essentially throwing down a card, and maybe you want that card that you're putting down, but you don't know what the other, say, 3 players are throwing out there. And so you don't really know whether you want to bid high or low or in between. You almost want a low bid just so you can get a rear turn order, 3rd or 4th. So then you know more about what you're bidding on and know when to pounce, when to spend that cube to really be sure you get your first choice of cards.
Wait, I'm misunderstanding something.
Yeah.
Why would you want to bid last?
Because you see what you're bidding on. So the cards that you're using to bid are also the prizes that you're bidding on. So the first player puts down a card, but they don't know what anybody else is throwing out there. The second player sees what... I
understand that, but I don't see that there's an advantage to bidding last. To bidding low, you want the first choice at card.
But if you're going first, you don't know if anybody's going to throw out junk.
Right. Yeah.
There's not really junk in this game. This game, most of the cards are fine in some fashion or other.
Yes, I did feel like there wasn't anything terrible. But if you're looking for, say, a gray resource, and you really need a gray resource to fill your factory space, you don't know if that's coming out if you're going early in the turn order, but you might know that there are gray cubes available if you're going 3rd or 4th.
Mm-hmm. That's how I played it. I did it exactly like that. Going closer to the end when I did my bidding, like lower bids. And it worked out for me. Well, it worked out for me in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my thing, Eric. With the bidding in this game, I don't feel like it's necessary. I feel like this game has this big bidding and trick-taking, I guess they call it, thing. And it would have worked just as fine if you had all put a card and then drafted them.
And that's kind of what I was feeling like. I felt like the bidding was a little muddy. I didn't feel in control. I think that was my issue with it. I wanted to know more about what I was doing in that phase of the game. The tile laying was neat. I like adding the card to my empire once I got it. but I didn't feel like, especially going first or second, that I had any control about what I was doing. And while I understand that is the push and pull of the game, I didn't enjoy that. So I was only so-so on Honshu.
I like Honshu, but I just think that parts of it could have been dropped out, that's all. Let's talk about Word Slam. Now, Word Slam was just on the recommendation list for the Spiel des Jahres, and I guess we should talk about that briefly. The Spiel des Jahres was announced last week. Did you guys see this?
Yes.
I did.
Well, I mean, it's not hard to miss if you're on the internet, and I was actually some surprises in the Spiel des Jahres. Not really a surprise at King Domino, because that one has been getting a lot of buzz. The El Dorado game from Knizia, I don't know anything about it, but it's a Knizia game, so he usually has a game in there somewhere. The Magic Maze one kind of surprised me. I love that game. Love it. But I'm bringing it to Origins for us to play, Eric.
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. So that's cool. The Kennerspiel, I actually had a conversation today with Bonacore. I'll get to that in a second. But the Terraforming Mars made it, which was no surprise. And then the Exit the Games made it, which I'm pleasantly surprised about to see neat. Those in there. And then Raiders of the North Sea, which is the first, if I'm correct, Kickstarter game to be nominated for Spiel des Jahres.
Really?
Oh, it is. I didn't know that.
It's not a Kickstarter game in Germany, but it was in America. So that's an interesting thing. It actually came out, I think, 2 years ago, I believe, in America, which is typical many times for these awards. So Word Slam was on the recommended list, as many other games were. But anyway, back to Bonacore, I actually called him today to see if he was sick. In all seriousness, because his game was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres.
Yeah, and he was kind of quiet about it.
I didn't see trumpeting all over the internet, 6,000 tweets, a long email. I said, if you win, Mr. Bob's Backyard Barbecue Award, you tell everybody about it. This was very odd for him. He was not sick. And he said, I don't do that. It's like, sure. If I said biggest self-promoter in the business and time's up, you would say Stephen Bonacore.
Stephen Bonacore, yeah.
It would just happen.
Exactly.
But anyhow, so Word Slam. This is a long introduction here.
This is a big tangent. Okay.
Game from Cosmos. It's designed by Inca Marcus Brand, which most of the games there seem to be designed by them these days. And it is a team versus team game. And so you divide up into teams, and then two people from each team, one person from each team is the clue giver. And you turn over a card, roll a die, and you have a word that you have to give out as clues. To get people to guess this, you need to go through decks of cards. You have 4 decks of cards: nouns, verbs, adjectives, and prepositions, and other words like that. And you just start putting cards on a rack that your team can see. You can't do anything else. You can't say anything. You can't hum. All you can do is put cards on the rack. You can pick the order you put the cards in. You can point at a card. You can put a card on, then take it off again. Whatever tricks you can do to try to get people to guess your clue. So your team will be yelling out answers, and whichever team yells at the answer first gets it. However, you can't see the cards that the other team has. However, you can hear their answers, and you can use those to guess the word. So it's kind of like a mix between Pictionary, with the two different teams guessing, and the Concept.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of similarities to Concept, where the Concept you're placing cubes on ideas. Here you're using cards. So you have to figure out, okay, I have yellow and round. Well, that's an easy way to get sun. But if the word is sunstroke, that's a little bit more difficult to get people to guess that. And so I found this to be really fun. I really like Concept. And this takes Concept and essentially turns it into a team game. Because Concept is not really a game. It's more of an activity.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is definitely a game. And I like the fact that I'm looking at these clues and like, what are they trying to say? And then I hear the other team shout out an answer. And I'm like, oh. And it works really well. This is great fun. My kids were unhappy when we put the game away, which does not happen very often. Kids are like having a great time playing the game. And then you're like, and now we're done. And electronics are back in play. They're like, oh, see you later. So that's Word Slam. Highly recommended.
Oh, we're back to me. Oh, my goodness. Well, my next game was Yokohama, published by TMG Games.
Amazing game.
I liked it. We played it with 2 players, and I know it slightly changes the board where it's a bit smaller. I don't know if you guys have played it with a higher player count. It reminded me a little bit of Istanbul. And I liked the fact there was a lot of set collection. I'm actually really good with set collection. So for those who haven't played it, the theme of the game, it's like a fishing village, I think, is the kind of setting that it's in. And what you're trying to do is you have workers and you have a president, which is great, which is where you're going to move him on the board to take these actions. And you also have, I probably not using the correct terminology here, but these kind of objective cards that you're trying to complete to also gain points. This is the type of game you just get points everywhere. So every location has places like, for example, you can make buildings, and those buildings you can place on other parts of the board, which is to allow you to gain victory points or other resources or supplies to complete your objective cards. They also have other cards that give you special abilities, and owning several of those cards also give you points. There are other spaces on the board where if you acquire, I believe it's cargo, for example, there's a couple, I don't know what you'd call them, there's a ranking of points at the top, and the more of this product you can have higher amount of points by placing your workers there and submitting all of the cargo you've collected. So I like the fact that you have to end up paying another player if you pass a spot or end up, going through an area where that player is. And it's really neat because you use your workers kind of in succession. They have to be adjacent to each other in order to move your president to the spots where you can take your action. If you end up passing through another player, you have to pay them. So, obviously you want to try to avoid that to prevent them from gaining money and making buildings and acquiring more points. So the point of the game, obviously, is to be successful with your businesses and buildings and collecting the most points. I am sure I missed something in there because there's so much going on in this game. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to playing it with a higher player count to see if it becomes maybe a little bit more competitive. It plays 2 to 4 players, I believe, and Yokohama plays in about 90 minutes, I think, at that player count.
Yeah, the fact is I just played recently that big giant game, Colonists. This is a 6
Mine's
to
in
7,
plastic.
8 hour. I'm sorry, what?
Mine's still in shrink.
Leave it.
No.
No, here's the thing. It's not necessarily a bad game. But Yokohama gives the same experience, like you just said, in 90 minutes. And I don't think Colonist justifies the extreme length of the game. It's a good game, but a lot of it's this new category of games I'm calling worker movement. Where you, I guess they say that in these games too. Instead of placing a worker, you have a worker that's moving on the board.
Right.
And so it's the same style thing. I also just got the deluxe version of Yokohama in, and I'm super pleased about this.
That's the one that's all shiny and golden?
Yes, it's nice.
It's not so much the shiny golden parts. That's nice. I'm not distracted by that. Yes, I am. But it's that it has wooden buildings, and they're a lot easier to see on the board.
Oh, yeah.
Just as a visual look, like who has what where. Because that matters as you're going around doing things.
Right.
So, man, no. Yeah, you're right. This is an easy one for my collection. I agree with Mandy.
I'm excited to play it. My game group has it, and I haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Oh, no. You need to get that to the table, Eric.
It's
good.
You'll like that one, Eric. I really feel like you will. But as much as nice as this one looks, what about the cool art stylings of Eric's next game?
Well, let's talk about that. That is The Lost Expedition. This is a game by Pierre Sylvester from Osprey Games, and the art design is very like classic pulp comic book, like Rin Tin Tin style. Very distinctive and neat, but also a little gruesome because this is about an expedition to find El Dorado. And the object of the game is to work your expedition across a certain number of map cards. They're really just spaces, either 7 or 9, depending on what difficulty level you're playing. This is a cooperative game, and you're trying to get your expedition to El Dorado. It doesn't matter how dead you are. Like, as long as one of your characters is still alive, when you get to El Dorado, apparently there's an airlift out of there because you're safe and you win. You could be half dead, but you make it. Anyway. The mechanism here is that you have, once again, a deck of 60 cards. They're all numbered. This is a theme I've got today. And each one is going to do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So each one has some sort of event that has to happen where you are translating. You're giving up certain resources to gain other resources. There's expertise that you can acquire and then spend to get past different obstacles. And then there's you have your adventurers. They all have sort of a specialty, and you can spend health on those adventurers to get through different things. And you also have some bullets, and you've got some food that you can spend to do stuff. So all these cards have a sequence of things, events that can happen, choices that can happen, events or like trade-offs, optional things. And you will hopefully gain resources rather than losing all of them when you play these. But the mechanism is that in the morning, there's a morning and an evening. And in the morning, each player is going to play 2 cards from their hand, and they're going to be reordered in numerical order. So as you go, if I play the 14 and then you play the 7, your 7 is going to go before my 14. That's how they will resolve once we're done. You go around the table twice, so you've played 2 cards, and then you go down the line, giving up resources, trading resources, acquiring cards, making decisions, etc. In the evening, you have to play your remaining 2 cards that you have in your hand. You had 4 to start, and these resolve in the order that you played them. So you're forced to play some of these not-so-great cards that are dangers you may have faced, a jaguar that you have to shoot, and if you don't have ammo, you might take damage. And you have to decide as a group. You're never allowed to say what's in your hand, but once it's on the table, you can talk about it all you want. And try and set up your teammates so that the bad stuff isn't quite so bad. There are some effects that can skip cards. There are some that make it easier to gain things or make the pain not so bad. There are some that add cards to the line. And ultimately, you have to survive advancing along the path. That's another one of these effects on these cards, advancing along the path. But some of those are the best cards for gaining resources and doing cool things for your party, regaining health. Because if those adventurers die, well, you lose. There's always 3 adventurers. There's actually 6 in the box, but it's really just male and female versions of the 3 expertises, which is nice. You can choose whatever party you like, but they're effectively the same thing. I enjoyed the game. It's novel. It's very puzzly and thinky because it is ultimately very mechanical and resource management style game. And it is one of those things that you can sort of work it all out once the cards are on the table. You can say, yes, we are going to survive this, or no, we're not. There's a little bit of unknown as you reveal cards from the top of the deck due to some card effects, but most of it is once you've got the cards laid out, you kind of know what's going to happen. So it's a little deterministic that way. I'm fine with that. That is a style I enjoy. But if you want a little more randomness and unknown in your game, this one might turn you off a little bit. But other than that, I think it's a strong candidate. I don't know if it's one I'm going to play a whole lot of. There's only 60 cards in the deck. Mm-hmm. And so at some point, I think a group might get a sense of which cards need to be skipped, which ones are good to hit, which ones are useful to you, and maybe sort of solve it a little bit. But there's enough play in here that I think you'll get several plays out of it before you get to that point. So thumbs up for the Lost Expedition. It's distinctive and it's difficult. We played an easy level and breezed through, and I think that was a fluke. It sort of fooled us. We're like, okay, let's move on to normal. This is too easy. This is going to be a really short review.
Oh, Eric, you fool.
You fool. We did win on normal as well, but just barely. Like, the one woman limped into El Dorado, and that was it. So, yes, tricky and distinctive. I liked it. The Lost Expedition from Osprey Games.
Do you think it would play better, or more replayability as a solo game? Because I know it does play solo.
There are solo rules, although it's different. I mean, they sort of tweak the rules a little bit if you're going to play solo, and I have not tried it that way. But they certainly... They worked their way into finding a rule set that matches for solo, so I would assume it plays well.
Okay.
I am excited, folks. I have found the best methodology for stopping zombies. What is it?
Fire hose?
That's a good choice, Ronald Reagan. But it is actually mathematics.
Oh.
And that is what City...
Sorry.
Well, you know what you need in order to do math? Brains.
Don't be jumping on my game before I even talk about it here, Mandy. This is called City of Zombies.
You said math.
In this game, you have piles of zombies that are coming to eat your survivors. So you lay out a row of zombies, and these zombies are all different numbers, and then each player gets a turn before more zombies show up. And on your turn, you roll 3 dice, 3 6-sided dice. And you can kill zombies with those dice, but only if you use all 3 dice. So if I roll a 2, 5, and a 6, and there is a zombie out there that's a 2, a zombie out there that's a 5, and a zombie out there that's a 6, boom, 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 I killed 3 zombies. Or if there's a zombie that's a 2 and a zombie that's an 11, I can kill those 2 zombies. Or if there's a zombie that's out there that's 22, I can do that because 5 plus 6 is 11 times 2 is 22. So you can see when you have zombies that are 37 out there, you have to think a bit.
Yeah.
Because, actually, I'm not even sure how to do that one off the top of my head.
That's what I'm sitting here trying to figure out.
Oh, yes. You need 2 6s and a 1. Sorry. You need a 36 and a 1. You can also square a number to kill something. So if there's a 25 and I have a 5, boom, I got it. And so you can make the game difficult. You can pick from level 1 to 4. So level 1 is basic numbers. 2 adds some more bigger numbers. 3 adds large numbers that are prime numbers. 4 adds negative numbers. And there's also heroes that you can use. You can tap these heroes and use their special abilities to add dice to rolls. You have to survive for like 14 turns. A plane is coming to land. If you don't kill the zombies, they move forward. And if your front row is ever filled with zombies, you lose. They also eat your survivors that you have there. You have a pile of survivors. And if you if you manage to survive that long, you'll get a score based on the number of survivors you have left. The artwork is done in a very, very cutesy style. Like, almost, it's, again, a game is aimed at kids. So it's not
like
really
Plants vs. Zombies
like
style art.
Zombie type stuff.
Yeah.
And there's even aliens in the mix. But it's definitely a game to teach math. Now, I like the game. I think it's fascinating. It's interesting. It's not like an amazing game, but I liked it. However, unanimously, my kids did not. And for different reasons. My younger children thought that the math part was horrific. Too bad. Learn math. You can do it this way, or you can do writ problems. It's a zombie game. My oldest daughter, Melody, did not like it because she thought the game was too deterministic. She would roll the dice, and she likes the math part, and she'd figure out the combinations, and she'd say, you can kill this zombie, or you can't kill a zombie, whatever. She thought there wasn't a lot of choices. I see her point, but I would argue that you can tap some of the heroes and do some manipulation to get it. Not a ton of manipulation. And I don't even care about the manipulation. I want to see the kids arrive at the results. Yes, you subtract, 6 minus 4 is 2 times 5 is 10. That's how you use those 3 dice to get that number. And I like that. I think it's a good educational tool that is actually fun. And I don't want to hear nothing bad about math because math is important and everyone needs to know basic math.
Sadly, I agree, but it doesn't mean I have to like it.
Well,
this sounds a lot like the Haba game Secret Code 13+4. I don't know if you played that one, Tom.
I feel like I have, but I'm going to have to look it up to remember.
It's very much the similar mechanism. You're rolling the dice, and you have to put them in different combinations to reach certain totals and advance along a track. But certainly it's a burglary theme as opposed to a zombie theme.
Okay.
Well, my BGG thing says I have not played this one.
It looks cute.
No, I haven't. Now that I'm looking at it, I haven't. But that looks fun. But maybe you want zombies in your life.
Maybe you do.
So anyway, you want zombies and you want math. I recommend this one. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are the games we played this week.
And now, hastily assembled from experiences of listeners just like you, the Dice Tower presents Tales of Gaming. Gather round, children. I used to be part of a Monday night D&D group, which I had to leave when my first daughter was born. However, every now and then one of them can't join, and they invite me back for a board game night instead. One of these evenings, we played many good games. We started with Ticket to Ride, and one of us, the host, got a little short-tempered when it seemed to him we were all conniving against him when we built, back to back to back, the 3 roads leading to Miami, which she apparently also needed.
It was wide open a turn ago. It's like you're trying to make me lose.
Well, we sure aren't trying to make you win. We then played the Meteor Bruges, halfway through which he started complaining.
These stupid dice can really hose you bad. Why put decisions in the game if the dice end up determining the winner?
Those who know Bruges amongst the audience will probably realize that the dice play but a minor role in Bruges. But when a whiner is in wine mode, reason is of little help. And it kept on going when we cut off Red in Ingenious, and when we bought all the witches before he could get one in Dominion. And we finished the night with Havana, a game which only the care-berriest lovebirds would characterize as cutthroat. In Havana, you simultaneously play cards which give you actions and determine turn order. Playing cards 3 and 6 would give you an initiative of 36, for example. Early on in that game, we had an interesting thing happen. Me and the host tied for initiative. A quick look at our reference cards offered a list of tiebreakers to go through, all of which we were tied on, except for the last one. If still tied, youngest player goes first. They often tease me over there as I am the youngest of the group. I smiled.
That's unfair,
he whined.
Yes,
the other two answered.
Want to do a die roll for order?
The host offered.
Nope.
Another player cut off, glad to get the whiner back.
Rules say he plays first, no house rules. What are the odds it happens again anyway?
Of course, it happened 3 times in a row. It didn't have a major impact on the game, but I did take a building he wanted once, which made him fume. Good. In Havana, there's also an ever-growing central pile of gold and resources. At some point, not only were there 16 cubes, but 8 of these were exactly what was required to build 2 huge buildings, with the other 8 being yellow, which were all but useless right now. I played card 9, which allows you to take half the cubes in the center. We all revealed our cards and stated our initiative out loud. 45, said a player. 34, said the next. I said 29. The host was shocked. The words that were exchanged afterwards should not be repeated on a family-friendly show like the Dice Tower. But of course, he also had 29, and would play second. While I took the useful 8 cubes among the 16, he would be left with 4 useless yellow cubes. My trash.
Is this like revenge? A tale of revenge on a whiner?
Yeah, don't whine. That's the moral of this story.
I don't think that the tiebreaker should be youngest player.
Then I always win.
Yeah, you always win. That having a static tiebreaker like that is kind of... That is a little unfair.
Do you feel, though, when you have someone who whines a lot in a game, isn't there a bit of schadenfreude, or how do you say it?
Schadenfreude?
I'm sorry?
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude?
Schadenfreude.
Isn't there a bit of that, when they lose?
Yes.
I'm pretty blatant about it myself. if someone whines the whole game and then they lose, I'm like, oh well. I don't feel bad for you. But you know what? The worst player, I think one in my top 10 worst players of all time is this person who whines the whole game about how they're losing and they win handily.
Yes.
Oh, that's the worst.
Oh, yeah.
I agree, Mandy, but that probably means you shouldn't play with someone who's doing this podcast.
Wait, what? I do not whine. I get a little grumpy sometimes.
Yeah, no, Eric doesn't. But yes, it's hilarious. The only time I see Eric annoyed is when he's getting whooped in a game. And he's not like yelling or anything. He just sits there and you can see he's thinking.
I get a little quiet.
Harumph.
I see the little.
You should play with me. I rarely win. See?
Oh, okay.
So you'll be fine.
I said that to him too, but still.
But you probably beat him, didn't you?
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, maybe it came down to a tie and the younger player won. I can't remember, actually. I think Eric's younger than me, so no.
I am younger than you, yeah.
Doesn't work.
But speaking of ties,
Nice segue. Well done.
I know. I was waiting. That was good.
It's time for Gametek with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
Back in April, two American sports commentators said something that seemed innocuous. They suggested that baseball games should end if they go past 12 innings and be recorded as ties. The rationale was that longer games increase the chance for injuries, particularly to pitchers, and that since the season is so long in 162 games, the occasional tie doesn't matter that much overall. Well, that sparked a bit of a firestorm, and it was decried as being against the tradition of the game. Ironically, though, as the 538 blog pointed out, at the beginning of the 20th century, ties were far from rare. Games were called on account of darkness or weather, and about 2% ended in ties. In fact, 3 World Series games before 1930 actually had to be replayed because they ended in a tie. The switch to daylight savings time and then the addition of lights at all stadiums basically eliminated ties in American baseball by the 1990s. Now, I believe there's a strong cultural element in how we approach ties in games, although I was unable to find any specific research in this area. Japanese baseball, for example, does have ties. In fact, they have the rule that was proposed here that games that are still tied at the end of 12 innings count as ties. And one of the things Americans complain about in soccer, or football in the rest of the world, is the prevalence of draws in games. The rest of the world seems okay with it, but here in the US we want a resolution to our games. Board games obviously have a similar issue. How do we deal with ties? Now, many games do not have tiebreakers at all. Uwe Rosenberg, the designer of Agricola and Converda, among other titles, famously does not put tiebreakers into his games. Now, personally, I do not like it when games end in ties. I guess that's the ugly American in me coming out. So I always put tiebreakers into my games if necessary. They always end definitively in victory or defeat. So what makes a good tiebreaker? I can tell you what I think makes a bad one. Let's go back to soccer. In the World Cup and other tournaments, draws do not work in the elimination rounds, as you need to definitively know who is going to advance. So, first there is a certain amount of overtime, which is played just like regular time, but if that also ends in a tie, the game advances to penalty shots. Now, I don't like this solution at all. To me, the penalty shootout is a totally different game than normal soccer. The method of resolving a tie should involve the normal game in some fashion. In board games, we rarely use the overtime method, where play is continued until someone is in the lead. Most of the time, there are other criteria that are evaluated to try to break the tie. The best way to do this is to come up with a criteria that indicates that someone has played slightly better. Sometimes this is done with efficiency. For example, if you collect gold during the game and that helps you get victory points, the tiebreaker can be the person with the most remaining gold. Now, this becomes tough in games with multiple resources, which is why I think that Uwe Rosenberg has stayed away from tiebreakers in Agricola, Caverna, and similar titles. If you know the first tiebreaker is, say, the number of pigs you have, that means that a pig strategy is slightly elevated in desirability. One of the things he takes great pains to do in his games is to ensure that the different paths to victory are relatively equal. If one path is also the first tiebreaker, that destroys the symmetry, or at least makes it a little harder to create. To give an example of tiebreakers that try to reflect player performance, let's take a look at what we did for Survive Space Attack. Now, the original Survive, for those of you that haven't played the game, is about saving your people from an island that is sinking into the sea. You need to get as many as you can to safety by getting them to any of the 4 corners of the board. Each figure has a number on the bottom from 1 to 6, and your score is the total value of the people you rescue. This is not an egalitarian game. Some people are worth more than others. Now, the original Survive had no tiebreaker rule. If the players were tied, they were tied. Now, I don't like tie games, so when we did the retheming and reimagining of Survive Space Attack, we wanted to add tiebreakers. Now, we ended up adding 3 levels of tiebreakers, and here's my justification. So the first tiebreaker was the number of figures that you saved. So if 2 players have the same total value, the win goes to the player who saved more figures. The idea being that saving more figures is harder than saving fewer, so that player performs slightly better and deserves the win. If it's still tied, the next tiebreaker is the number of different corners that you've had figures escape to. It's a little easier to concentrate and get your guys off the same corner of the board. Splitting up is harder, so again, the player that does that has encountered a higher degree of difficulty. Finally, if it's still tied, the player that is later in the turn order gets the win. There's actually a somewhat strong first-player advantage in this game, so this gives an edge to players who went later, and perhaps even had one fewer turn. So throughout these tiebreakers, we tried to reward the player that had achieved their score through a higher degree of difficulty. So how do you feel about ties? Are you okay with them? And if so, how often do you think a game should end in a tie? 2% like baseball, or 50% like Grandmaster Chess? This is Geoff Engelstein with Gametek.
You know, I try to be worldview in my thinking.
Yeah.
But in this, I'm unabashedly American.
Yeah, you want a winner.
I hate games with no tiebreaker.
I understand the point, though. I understand the idea that if you overemphasize one resource over the others by making it the first tiebreaker, it then makes that strategy more important or makes that resource more important.
Find some other way to break the tie.
I mean, you can't always do that in every game. It all depends on what style of game it is.
You can find some way to break the tie.
I guess.
I think so, because I find a lot of games now are leaning toward, okay, everybody's the winner. And I don't know if that's just in life or in games, but I do find
Well, no, I like cooperative games. If we're all supposed to win, or if the game is set up like Cosmic Encounter where there can be a few players who win together, I don't mind that. But if the game has a winner and you get to the end and it's like, the first tiebreaker is money. The second, if that's tie, then they all rejoice in their shared victory. I have never rejoiced in a shared victory in that kind of game. Instead, I've thought unkind thoughts about the designer, who obviously couldn't come up with yet another tiebreaker. It's not hard.
Right.
If you go to Nothing Personal, the rules, I spent more time on the tiebreaker rules than probably actually making the rules good. But there's I think 7 different ways. The final one says the first person to run up to the roof and throw the game off wins.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
But you know what? It will never get to that point.
Right.
I
won't.
do like the rules, the tiebreaker rules that give the least important resource, something that was ignored for most of the game, and make that the tiebreaker. So I was talking about Honshu earlier, and one thing I did like about it is the tiebreaker rule. Those desert spaces are absolutely useless during the course of the game. They pretty much just take up space on the cards. But it's the tiebreaker. Whoever has the most visible desert spaces, therefore played, I guess, with the most crud in their city and still tied for the victory, wins the game. That kind of tiebreaker I like.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we'll see. You guys tell us in the comments. Go to the forums. I'd like to hear about this because maybe I know that people disagree with me on this thing, and it doesn't bother some people. But I'm telling you, when I open that rule book, I'm like, they better have a tiebreaker. They better have a tiebreaker in here. So usually they do. But every once in a while, and it almost always says they rejoice in their shared victory.
It does.
I've never yet heard a cheer from a table nearby. I'm like, what happened? We shared the victory.
They shared the victory.
It's like Cosmic Encounter again, where that's the point of the game.
Right.
Right. So does this apply to Canadians? Because I don't think we're like that.
Are you okay with a tie?
You know what? I'm actually not. I understand it, and I'm very okay with it. Now, I do have to admit, sometimes I'll win a game, it's tied, and then I'll win based on I just had more money. And that, I think, is not really fair because maybe I wasn't really playing the game strategically, and I just happened to win the tie because I had extra money. So,
no, but you did win the game because you were tied for first place, and you did it with fewer resources than the other person did.
See, I don't know though. Sometimes I play a game and I really don't have a strategy in mind. I just go with the flow, and I'm
okay, but we're not talking about how you won the game. But I'm saying that let's say now that you know that's the tiebreaker,
right,
that adds to the strategy of the game if it matters. It really matters in Power Grid.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, most games of Power Grid are won on that tiebreaker.
Right, to the point where that matters.
Right. Yeah, but it's important to know that. When it's a game that is that tight and the tiebreaker is important, everybody needs to know that tiebreaker, if not from the very beginning of the game, but at least halfway through. You need to know that this is the determining factor if everybody's that close.
Well, I always tell people tiebreakers, if they're in a rule book, usually I'll try to go through and be like, all right, most points wins. Yeah. And after the tie, whoever has the most money or whoever's closest to the first person, first player marker, whatever the rule is.
When I tend to
I can make 30 of these up right now, tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Ted Alsbuck has a deck of cards. Buy it.
There you go. Yes, that's true. I tend to, when I'm teaching a game, mention that tiebreaker and then reiterate it a third or two-thirds of the way through the game, just so everybody remembers.
All right. Well, let's get to questions.
Tom.
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 Hi, Tom.
How do you pack your hats for safe travel?
If you were stranded on a desert island with one of the aliens from Cosmic Encounter, which one would it be?
Tom, gamers want to know. Is that Eric's real voice?
And now, the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the game library?
Mike bought the base of Marvel Dice Masters back in 2014, but lost interest because he had no one to play against, and it was hard finding packs in his area. He's thinking about picking it back up again, but doesn't know what set to buy into. Wants to know what we would recommend at this point to start buying packs of. He knows in the videos, Tom, you said that the Spider-Man set is a good set to learn off of, but Mike has a fair amount of experience with the game and its equivalent, its card equivalent, he says, is Magic. So he doesn't think ease of use is super important. So if you're an experienced Dice Masters player who's stepped away a little bit, where do you jump in now?
Right. So I still agree on that. For beginners, it's the Spider-Man set, or they're about to release a Superman Wonder Woman set. Those are great beginner sets. For an experienced gamer, you might consider jumping into the Dungeons and Dragons. That has more advanced concepts, and it's a pretty good one to export a system. If you don't care about that, then the new Batman set, you'll probably like it because it has cards that you can flip over onto both sides and use. So that's what I would recommend. Mike says...
Different Mike?
A different Mike. Yes, I did that on purpose. But yes, a different Mike says, don't ever change the music. But I still want to change the music at some point. I want to get some people to play different versions of this music. I have sheet music, you know. I want a Dixie version of it. I want a jazz version. I want a pop version of it. I want a heavy metal. No, not really.
We had a listener make an a cappella version once.
Ooh.
But yeah, I'd love to get more styles of the theme.
Anyway, he said he just moved to the St. Petersburg area of Florida. And he says it gets a little humid in Minnesota, where he came from, but much more humid in Florida. Yeah, that's true. He has a good-sized collection of games, and he wants to know what he should do. He has a dehumidifier, and he's been putting dry packs into games. Are there other tips you can offer? Do you deal with humidity in the summer, you guys? Mandy, probably not. Does it ever get warm where you're at?
Yeah, it actually gets very humid here in the summer.
So what do you do?
So I know a lot of us that live here have our games in the basement, if you have one, which is most people here unless you have a bungalow of some sort. So that's where my games are. They're mostly in the basement. It's cooler. Definitely, if you can afford or have air conditioning, I know it sounds ridiculous, but having that run throughout the summer is really important. I know a lot of people talk about dry packs. I've never used anything like that, and I've never had problems with humidity creeping into my games. So just the two things I've described, I've been really okay with my game staying dry.
Mr. Connecticut?
I agree. I mean, it can get pretty humid here, although I tend not to keep my stuff in the basement just because I've had flooding down there before. And it's not something that I would want to take the risk on, especially... I keep some empty boxes in there.
It would make a great tale of horror, though.
That would be. Oh, yeah. I keep some empty boxes down there, but I don't keep any of my active collection down there. We have air conditioning. It's done a pretty nice job of keeping that going, although, you know, it's nothing like Florida humidity. But so far, I've been pretty happy. I've not used the dry packs either. I think that's maybe a little excessive. But I guess that could work as well.
When I lived in Korea, I used the dry packs because I wasn't sure. I didn't want to pay for a humidifier because they're expensive, and I didn't want to run air in that part of the house. We had our house split into two sections, and it just felt like it was very expensive. So I used them. I'm not sure I needed to, but I didn't want to take any chances. But I never really noticed any problems in that regard. Now that I'm in Florida, it's not even a question. You just have air. You just run the air all the time. My air is... I think we turned it off a week in January. Now, you're a little north in Florida than we are, but not that much more. And so if you have your air conditioning running, that automatically dehumidifies. I haven't had a single problem with any of my games in that regard.
Yeah.
And you know what? I even left a pile of games in my garage, which is not air conditioned, in Florida, And I didn't notice many problems with them. I didn't leave them there very long. I mean, maybe like at the most a year. But I still don't think it's that big of a deal. No. I think you'll find a spider in your games before you find them.
Oh, that's even worse.
Well,
so you haven't had any...
I think if you see a spider in your game, you immediately pour kerosene on, light it on fire, burn the house down to be sure.
Absolutely.
So, like, sometimes cheap cardstock will start to curl when it gets humid like that. You haven't seen any of that, Tom?
I haven't seen it here, but my solution for that is to buy better games.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so the next on here is a lot of Eric Summerer love, it seems.
Ooh.
I'm hoping there's a question in here, but it's a lot of love for Eric. So there's a thank you. Apparently this person cannot, this is from Dan, by the way, cannot read the name of the game Imperial Settlers without immediately thinking of stormtroopers eating vanilla ice cream. I have no idea what that means, but I'm sure you're going to explain it. He's mentioning he's scanning the Gen Con event catalog, and it caused him to think of the stormtroopers wanting chocolate, but settling for vanilla instead. And he thought that as soon as he passed over the Imperial Settlers listing. So there is actually a question for Eric. Are you a fan of Piers Anthony? He was one of Dan's favorite authors growing up.
Piers Anthony, I haven't read... I don't think I've read any of his stuff.
Are you kidding me?
I do like a lot of classic sci-fi. My big problem is that I don't get to read for pleasure very often anymore.
Eric, he's fantasy, not sci-fi.
Okay. Then I have no idea what we're talking about here. No, I have not read Piers Anthony.
I think you might like his stuff. Piers Anthony's books are filled with puns. I mean, it's not like a couple. It never stops.
It's like the whole thing.
And I mean, he writes whole stories around these puns.
Okay.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like the creatures, like the one time they come in, a football comes and it's a ball of feet that comes out and rolls by them. And they have to fight different things, and the names of the books are often puns themselves. I actually really liked his first couple books, and after a while I was like, you know what? Too many puns.
That's enough.
That wasn't punny anymore? Oh.
Oh, yeah. So I guess next time I've got a lull in between books and I can actually read for pleasure, I will seek one out.
There you go.
And you should explain what the Imperial Settlers thing is more clearly.
Oh, yeah, because I have no idea what that is.
I think Dan did, but it was one of the end credit puns. Stormtroopers who really wanted chocolate but had to get vanilla instead is brought to you by Imperial Settlers.
All right. Well, Arnold wants to know how to store X-Wing. All right. He has a lot of X-Wing, and he wants to take it, and he has one big table, so he has to take it down. He can't leave it set up on the table. And on the show, on the video show, I've been doing things about these inserts. There's both Meeple Realty and Broken Token are making inserts for games. There's also, there's a lot of companies. Robert Searing is making inserts for games. And he wants to see better inserts in the game. He says it's ridiculous to buy a game for a lot of money, then pay a lot of extra money for shipping just to store it properly. But he says if it makes it worth the game, it's worth the money. So how do you store X-Wing? First of all, Fantasy Flight, stop making games with holes in the boxes. That really irritates me.
Oh, yeah, that's annoying.
I don't know. I know that they want to show the X-Wing, and that's cool, but couldn't they have like glued that plastic to the box or something?
Yeah. You can't use that box for anything. Unless everything is bagged. I think I put the rules against that top box cover so that it kind of holds something. But I had to go with Plano boxes and miniature storage boxes to put the actual
right. There's a lot of stuff to store miniatures. You got like Eric mentioned, just your typical storage boxes, but they also make cases that are specifically for these different things. Battle Foam, I believe, makes cases specifically for X-Wing if you so desire.
Mm-hmm. A fishing tackle box might work well for X-Wing, actually.
But the reason I put this in here is I want to ask you guys this. What do you think of this? Do you think it's worth it to buy an insert that is sometimes as much as the game to store the game inside? Like for Gloomhaven, it's not as much as the game, but I think the insert was like $70.
Ooh.
Is that worth it?
Lot.
You know, if a game it costs $30 and then the insert's being sold for $30, is that worth it?
If you're going to spend the money on the game and it's a game you think you're going to have for a long time, then yes, I think it's worth it. You have to be willing to invest, but there are people who are quite crafty and make their own on a budget. But yes, if you're going to spend that kind of money on a game, I would assume you'd want to protect it.
It is worth it if it's a game you're going to play. And I don't think this is an initial purchase sort of thing. That you buy the game, see how you like it first. Is this one that is going to stay in my collection? Is this one that is going to see the table time necessary to need a quick setup solution or a quick storage solution? I would not do this for every game I own, for sure. This is sort of a second, third, fourth tier of game organization. It's a wait and see sort of thing for me.
Agreed.
Yeah, for me, it's very similar. If I really like the game, I want to insert. Although I was saying the other day, I was opening up a box and I was like, a stupid insert. I'm going to throw this insert out. I'm tired of this. The insert's more, so I'm just going to bag everything and put it in a box. That's easier than the insert because everything had fallen out of the insert and was in different spots, and that's even worse sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know, and I was like, I can't believe I wasted the money on this insert. This insert doesn't work.
I buy those plastic containers. They're great.
Other times, though, like the new Meeple Realty insert for Gloomhaven, I'm like, I love these guys so much because this insert's so wonderful. I'm going to marry them. You know, so I kind of range all over the place. You can tell I'm a very emotional kind of guy.
A good insert is very nice. Like we got the second wave copy of Mechs vs. Minions in the last couple weeks, and that insert is just so lovely, and it fits so well. You could never throw an expansion in there. It fits everything like a glove, and that's it. That's all that could fit in that box. But it's organized, and everything comes out and goes back in exactly the way it's supposed to. It's perfect. So a good insert, it's like gold.
It's also good for a good resale value if you decide to sell the game.
So Dwayne doesn't know if this is the right address to send a question, but since we're reading
let me pause here actually for that. Folks, I'm in desperate need for more questions. Send them to dicetower@gmail.com. That's dicetower@gmail.com. Dicetower@gmail.com.
So Dwayne is relatively new to gaming, loves buying new games. However, sometimes when he buys games like Dead of Winter or Marvel Cinematic Universe Risk or even Betrayal at House on the Hill, he feels overwhelmed when he opens the box and sees the instructions and all the parts and pieces. He does think this makes the game fun and challenging, which he loves, but often doesn't know how to tackle the process of learning. The question is, do we have a process that we use when we open games for the first time to learn how to play them? Can you make some recommendations to me on how to make this process a little less daunting? Any suggestions would be appreciated. Looking forward to meeting you all at Dice Tower Con 2017. Woo-hoo.
All right, Mandy, what do you got?
So, for me, I have to tell you, I absolutely despise reading rules, especially when they're long and boring. So, I know that's a horrible thing to say as someone who reviews games. However, I like to, if videos are available, I will actually look at a really quick video, and then I will go back to the rulebook and I break it up piece by piece, but I have to lay the game out. I cannot just read it straight from the book. I just can't. My brain cannot concentrate. So I have to break it down. So I will actually take out the components and then go through section by section as the game is out in front of me. That is the best way for me to learn it. I can't just sit and read it cold and then play it. My brain just doesn't work like that. And I used to be a teacher, and that seems to be the way that works well when I'm teaching a game, and I give examples as I'm teaching. So that would be my way to do it.
I like to, when first breaking the shrink, I like to punch everything out first, sort of punch it all into the lid, so I have now held and touched and sort of semi-organized the components, at least some cards here and some piles of like-minded components go here. And I sort of have a sense of what's in the box before opening the rulebook. And then I'll sit down and read through the rules and say, oh, yeah, that was those weird-shaped tokens I picked up earlier. That makes sense. That's where those go. And while I'm not laying everything out, I don't always have the space or the time to do all of that at that particular moment. I I do have a sense of the components and sort of know what they're talking about. At least if the rule book has been written well, I can then associate that with where they should go. And I've looked at the board and have a sense of that. But I like to punch everything out first before opening the rule book, because then I have a sense of what it all is.
So when you open a game for the first time, you're right, it's overwhelming. I recommend that you kind of set everything outside the box and just start punching things out. Make sure you don't throw anything away.
Yes.
Right? Don't throw anything away until you're sure. And publishers, seriously, start putting little X's on things that people can throw away so they know. You know, if you're going to include 16 white tiles in a game as extra tiles, please tell us that in the rule book so we don't sit there wondering what they're for. But I digress. Most good rule books will have a list of all the components. That's a nice way to kind of know how to organize things a little bit.
Yes.
If they don't have a list of all the components, write them an email and tell them to knock off this nonsense, because that's required. Then, before you even read the rules, I always recommend, if you're trying to learn the game, go in the book and it will show you and tell you step by step how to set up the game. That will help you immensely. It's one thing to read rules. Some people read rules on the bus or whatever, and that's fine. But if you have the game set up, you're like, oh, this is that. This is over here. This goes to this. And then finally, Rodney Smith does Watch It Play. Just go watch his videos. that will save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
But seriously, if you're overwhelmed, for most major games, there is somebody who has done a how to play video.
Absolutely.
And that is so helpful sometimes. Even if I can't find a how to play video, sometimes I get stuck with rules. And I read more rules than, well, Eric and Mandy put together, honestly. I read a ton of rules. And every once in a while I read a rule book where I throw the rule book across the room because it makes me lose my temper. I'm so mad at how badly the rule book's written. I'm like, I can't figure this out. I look online. There's no how to play videos. But there is a couple reviews of it. And I'm like, oh, great. Because most reviews explain a little bit about how to play the game. And if I'm hoping they explain the one part that I don't understand.
That doesn't make sense.
And usually they do. Usually they do it. Or it comes through and I'm like, oh. Like, I just played a game where it said to put a cube on any tile on the board. And I was like, okay.
Sure.
But this game doesn't make sense here. And I couldn't figure it out. The game didn't make any sense. The game talks about collecting cubes and picking up cubes, and you start with a cube on any tile on the board, but I could not find how you put more cubes on the board. I went online and watched a review of it, and it was like, oh, they put the wrong word there. They meant on every tile on the board
Every tile.
instead of any. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But seeing that review made my life a lot easier. So what I'm recommending basically is watch the Dice Tower reviews.
Once Tom's figured it out, everybody can figure it
Oh,
out.
please don't do this. Sometimes Tom Vassell makes mistakes, and I already hear enough about them as it is.
Oh, we all do.
You all hear about my mistakes? Thanks.
No,
Yes,
we
we
all
all
make
do.
mistakes. Oh, come on. Come on.
Yep, there's the quote of the episode.
Oh, yeah.
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
All right, folks, set collection. I don't know that we've ever done this top 10 list.
Really? That surprises me, but I didn't go check.
Good, so you can't prove me wrong.
I can prove nothing yet.
Now, set collection is a very, very, open-ended thing. The easy thing to do when making these top 10 lists is to go to Board Game Geek and do a search using set collection, which is usually a bad idea because people very badly miscategorize things. And I feel like people had done that who might have made this list with me and
Oh,
the
really?
People's Choice. I definitely feel like they did that.
Oh, come on. No.
Well, I can't wait to hear
The
that.
reason I say that, no, that's fine. I'm not going to actually give you guys too much grief on this. But for me specifically, I tried to put games on my list where I felt like the set collection was a major thing of the game.
Right.
Eric, for example, has some games on this list where I feel like the set collection is minor.
I'm looking forward to hearing that because I felt like I kicked some out that I didn't think were strong enough. So I'm pretty sure that my set collection's pretty good.
Oh, did I say Eric? I meant Mandy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, come on.
Wow.
I will prove you wrong.
So now we know what the tone of this list is going to be.
No,
it's okay. I see a couple there that
I don't want to come across as curmudgeonly because really this is a broad category. But you know what? It's a category that people like. There's something very cathartic about getting the sixth thing of that set you want it to get.
Yeah.
You know, and this is an older style game. This is not like a new Euro mechanism we've discovered. This has been around forever.
Right.
I mean, even back with Go Fish, you're collecting sets. Or Old Maid, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This was a hard list for me to put together. There were a lot of games I enjoy in this category, and trying to rank them so that I could, make a top 10 out of it was more difficult than I expected.
Yes, and I
agree.
said, there are some games that I really like a lot that were in this category, but I picked ones where the set collection was kind of the focus of the game, or a good chunk of it.
All right.
Let's get started.
Number 10.
Number 10 is a two-player game from Rio Grande Games called Burger Joint. You are collecting different colored cubes to advance your burger and restaurant empire, and you're drafting cubes in order to do so. And as you get different combinations, you can then turn them in to build new burger joints or pizza joints or restaurants and upgrade things. The key is that the two players aren't using the same sets of cubes to do the same thing. So I may really need a brown cube and you may not, but then are you drafting it to take it away from me, or are you going to further your own plans? I like the system. It's a neat two-player, and I'm glad I've got it in the collection. Burger Joint, my number 10.
My number 10 is Stone Age. I really like Stone Age, and one of the major scorings in Stone Age is collecting sets of different items at the end. In fact, this is pretty much the way I always try to win the game is by collecting a set of, I don't remember what they are, like a bowl and other things. And the more different ones you have, you get points. But that's not the only set collection in this game. You have these cards that will give you points for like every villager you have, or for, I call that the vassal strategy, is where basically you have as many kids as possible and put them on to work on the farm. Are collecting the most tools and then having cards that multiply by those and give you points. So my number 10, Stone Age.
So my number 10 is New York Slice by...
Wait a minute. Eric had burgers and now you have pizza?
See?
I'm hungry.
You are out of the loop. It's all about food at number 10. So New York Slice.
Wait till my number 9. I'm going to change my list around.
I think you should reverse it. Oh, goodness. So I have New York Slice by Bezier Games. This is a really thematic and straightforward game. It's about pizza. So the pizza has points, and you basically can only score if you get like values of pizza. So you want all the 10s. You have to have the most pizza marked with number 10 in order to score that 10 points. There are other ways in the games to collect points or conditions that will change that, but set collection, I find, is the main theme of this game, and it's just super delicious, except for those anchovies. Disgusting. So that's my pick for number 10.
This is a really good choice. I really like this one. Delicious. I want some pizza.
Exactly. See, it makes you hungry. It's a good game.
Number 9.
Number 9, you knew this was going to show up on the list somewhere, and that's Ticket to Ride. You're building track, and the way you do so is by collecting sets of cards. The only reason that it's not farther along on the list for me is that there's no hand limit. So some of the decisions that you often get in these set collection games where you can't get everything doesn't always come into play. You can collect cards for a good bit and get a giant hand of them. Of course, the danger is that you're letting your opponents build on the track before you do. But you don't have to discard to make room for the cards you're drafting. Still, great game and a great example of set collection. Ticket to Ride.
I think I'm the only person in the world that does not like Ticket to Ride.
Really?
Oh.
You're not the only one, but yeah.
You're going to get a whole bunch of people who be like, hey, me too. Because haters got to hang.
I can't get into it. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's a lovely game. I've played a few of them. It's just not for me.
All right. Well, my number 9 is Sushi Go Party. Now, in Sushi Go Party, you are trying to collect sets of sashimi and other kinds of sushi, which I can't pronounce.
Sashimi?
That's a new one.
I never had sashimi.
I already preempted you with the end of my sentence.
Is that like grocery store sushi? Try some sashimi.
It's day old. Day old. Day old sushi.
I tried that once. Didn't go well.
Not so good.
Anyway, please continue,
Sorry.
Tom.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I'm a guest on my own podcast, but all right. Anyhow, so you're collecting groups of sushi in this game, and that's really an entertaining thing. It's a drafting game. Sushi Go was already a great game. Sushi Party for an obscenely low price point, and lots of variations and lots of fun. I've never had this game go over poorly. It is an incredibly fun game of collecting sets of sushi, and you can try to pronounce them any way you want, and I won't mock you.
But we will. I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So my number 9 is Lords of Waterdeep. This is a great game, and I know I'm probably going to get flagged for this, but I believe there's set collection. You have quests that you're trying to complete, and obviously you want to try to get ones of the same type because you get endgame scoring if they match the kind of quests that are on the lord that you're holding. I mean, at the heart, it's a worker placement type game, and you take actions with your workers on the board, and you get to create buildings, which give you even more benefits, or if other people take those actions, they're also giving you benefits. I personally, this is one of the first games I ever bought, and I still have it to date, and I love it. So I think this is a great one on my list of set collection.
This did make my short list.
Yeah, you don't think about it at first, when you go through this, but it really is. I'm really glad I replaced mine with the little meeple dudes that replace the cubes.
Oh, you got the stylistic ones? Okay.
That's what I have.
I can't even imagine playing without them. Every once in a while, I'll see someone else's Lords of Waterdeep copy, and I'm like, what's wrong with...
You got the cubes.
I agree. You need to step it up. It's amazing.
Number 8.
All right, let's hit a classic for number 8. That's Rummy Cube. It is based on the card game of Rummy. You're collecting tiles and putting them into sets of runs or sets of like numbers, and eventually you start placing them into the center of the table. But what really makes this game shine is that then you start manipulating those sets and runs that are on the table to get more of your tiles onto the table. And you start separating sets and reorganizing them and adding numbers into the middle of runs and just breaking them up and doing all sorts of crazy machinations to make new sets. And that is the fascination of Rummy Cube. One that I recently introduced to the kids, and they enjoyed it. I need to bring this out more often. Rummy Cube, my number 8.
I have actually still not played this game.
Seriously?
No, I know about it, and I know most of the rules, but the game is 39 years old now, and I have 39 years of other great games I want to play first.
It's fine. It's really good for being a classic. For being a 39-year-old game, it's got some legs. I like it.
So it holds up, is what you're saying.
I do. It's a great family game. Mm-hmm. It's certainly one that you can play with all sorts of... It hits mass market for sure.
Eric, basically, when he says it's a family game and a classic, he means you can play this at an old folks' home.
Oh, no.
Yes, or with my parents, yes.
Yeah, but you need those. You need those kind of games on the list.
No, you don't need those kind of games. You can be like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to teach you Ticket to Ride. That's what I did.
Well, I almost added Mahjong to the list.
See?
That's different. That's one of those games we cannot say bad things about.
Exactly.
Okay, my next game is Guildhall. Guildhall is actually now it's split into 3 different games with a 4th one on the way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But they all play pretty much exactly the same. Just buy one and you're fine. In Guildhall, you are collecting. I mean, the game is all about collecting sets of people, whether it's a dancer or a thief or assassin or whatever they are. And then once you have a set of these people, you will be able to activate them to get different powers. Actually, you don't even need a complete set. You can activate them, but as your sets grow, their powers grow even more. And it's a really interesting game. It's a lot of fun. The initial version, the picture, I think, scared a lot of people away. There's a guy holding a couple pigs, like staring at you, and you're like, no,
thank you.
I'll go to the next game, please. Call the police, somebody. But the fantasy versions also look like generic fantasy games. But they're actually really fun. That's Guildhall. Any of the versions, you'll be fine. And if you get more than one version, you can mix and match them.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 8 pick is Pastiche. So I love this game because it's about art, which is fantastic. It's a bit of a brain burner, but you're trying to basically collect paintings. And you do that by mixing paint. So you have these kind of, I think it's hexagon shapes that you want to pair together with other colors to create paints in order to make these paintings, create sets, which will allow you to get more points if you have a certain collection or set collection of paintings. Now, I like pastiche, not petite pastiche. There is a difference. And this is my number 8 pick.
I do like pastiche.
It's a good one. And the board is massive.
Number 7.
Number 7 for me is Coloretto. This is the card game older brother of Zularetto or Aquaretto. But you are trying to get sets of, in this case, colored iguana cards. And when you draw cards, you have to put them into sets, or you can draw an entire set, an entire row of cards, sometimes getting cards you don't want because you're only going to score positive points for 3 of your colors, and the others are negative. So you have to only draft ones you really want and try not to take the junk. But, of course, your opponents are going to know this and put the good cards with the bad cards, so you have to take junk if you want that orange card you've been pining over the whole time. Anyway, I really enjoy the set collection aspect of Coloretto, my number 7.
My number 7, and actually, well, okay, never mind. I can't talk about this until later. My number 7 is Abyss. Now, Abyss is a game about collecting little sets of fish cards that you will then use to summon the fish lords. And the fish lords are amazing, and that's how you win the game, but they give you different points. But the whole game is about collecting these cards. But what's fascinating is as you turn each card over, if you don't grab it, someone else might decide to grab it instead of you, which is really annoying sometimes. Mm-hmm. And you have to sit there as you turn over each card and go, do I want this card? Or maybe I'll get a better one. Or maybe not. You're never sure. So I find it a very fun, fascinating game. Not talked about as much a few years after it's come out, but still a really solid game, Abyss.
This game I thought was very pretty. I played it and I was a little disappointed. I don't know. I wanted to really, really like it, but I don't know. It kind of was okay for me. I did like the set collection aspect of it, though.
Well, great. Hold on to that thought for a minute.
Okay. I guess that's a clue to move on. So.
No. Continue.
No, I think I'll stop there. So my number 7 is Oh My Goods. I think it was previously called Royal Goods, if I'm not mistaken. So it really has more of an engine building feel to it, but you have cards that act as buildings. So you want to acquire these cards in order to produce goods, in order to build other buildings. So basically the first player to 8 of these buildings will win the game, but you generally want to have sets of cards that are going to work well with each other in order to produce these goods and lead you to victory. I like the fact that these cards are like multi-use, so you can use them as resources or you can use them as buildings to produce. So that's my number 7 pick. Lots of fun in a small box.
All right, so let's return to that thought that we put on pause a moment ago.
Oh, no.
Well, first of all, with all due respect to the very talented Mandy, I don't believe this is a set collection game at all.
Okay.
Because that would make every resource collection game a set collection game.
It was a little...
Well, you're collecting the buildings in order to earn those assistant cards.
Right.
That then help you out later. So I don't think it's as large an aspect.
It's a slight stretch, but I think it fits the bill.
Okay, well, that's fine. But for me, what's weird about this game is I really disliked it. I gave it a 4 out of 10.
No, I love it.
Well, here's the deal. I played it with the first edition rules. Apparently, it's much better later on. My biggest problem with the game was you just built a pile of small buildings, and you would end the game before you never could get those big buildings to go off,
right?
Because the game ended too fast. So whoever got more small buildings won the game. Mm-hmm. And I reviewed this, and Mr. Pfister himself came in and said, "Well, that was first edition. It was for casual gamers. This is they're much better rules." But I've never actually played with those rules, and everyone says how great the game is, and he is like a really good designer. So I'm wondering if I should go back and play it. I probably never will, but I wonder sometimes. And also, who named it that name? That's one of my least favorite names of a game ever.
I like it because I even put a little exclamation mark. Oh my goods! Oh. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It catches the eye a little bit.
That's on my list of... I made a top 10 of ways not to name your game. One of the things was stop using exclamation points. It doesn't make the game better. I'm looking at a pile of games in front of me right now, and the Ticket to Ride has an exclamation point. It's Aventuros al Train or whatever in Spanish, and then I see Pie Face with an exclamation point, and stop it. Stop using these exclamation points. I'm getting off on a tangent. Let's keep going.
You are, yes.
All right.
Number 6.
Number 6 is Coliseum, in which you are collecting various types of tiles to put on a show. And you sort of draft these guys to begin with and hopefully gain enough to put on a high-scoring production that will wow the crowds. And so it's a little different. I like the sort of narrative aspect, but maybe that's just the way that we play it. But still, Coliseum, number 6.
That was super fast.
It was.
All right,
it's
cool.
a good game. I like that one. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah.
My number 6 is Fairy Tale. Pretty much the same thing as Sushi Go here, where you're collecting sets of cards as you draft them around the table. Sometimes you need like certain cards, like the Dragon Riders go with the dragons, and sometimes you just need a whole bunch of the same type of card, the fairies or whatever. It's just basically collecting sets of cards. The fantasy theme is very thinly laid on top of this, but I still really enjoy this drafting game. Sushi Go, collecting sets of cards is the easiest, but I think I like Fairy Tale a little bit better because I think it's deeper and has more stuff going on.
My number 6 is P. Mal Flaumen, and of course it's about food, so you know it's going to be on my list. And
I'm in.
I love food. What can I say? So this game is great because you're collecting fruits. It's more of a trick-taking game, but it is set collection because you have cards that you would like to score, and in order to do so, you have to collect the types of fruits that are depicted. So there are other cards that kind of protect other players from stealing your cards because, you want those sets and those big points, and the point values escalate as you go through the rounds. I believe it's 3 rounds, and in the third one, there's a lot of points to obtain with those sets. So P. Mal Flaumen, a favorite lunchtime game for me, but it's a bit tricky to teach, but really good.
I never heard of this one.
Really? They're gonna bring it back as plums in English. So this, I think it means like rule of thumb in German. It's a completely different definition, but they're bringing the game to North America as plums, which is totally not the translation at all, but yeah, you will be.
Okay. No, I've heard of plums.
Yeah.
I've heard of plums. I didn't hear that.
Is this plums from Crash Games?
So I'm not sure who it is with here.
It is mentioned Crash Games on the BGG website. This is originally from Pegasus, and I remember Patrick announcing plums a while ago. Mm-hmm. This is before Crash Games went under.
Right.
So maybe it's not coming to America now?
Oh, maybe not then. Like I grabbed this for the change.
Maybe it's going somewhere else. I have a copy of the Crash Games edition of Plums, and it never hit the table. So now I guess I should put it back on top of the pile.
I think you'd like it, actually.
But call it by the right name.
Okay, come on now. P. Mal Flaumen sounds so fancy.
It does, yes.
But you saw how much problem I have pronouncing sushi names. There is no way I'm trying that.
Fair enough.
Number 5.
My number 5 is a Spiel des Jahres winner, Alhambra, in which you are trying to... It's a little bit of a majority game in the set collection as you collect groupings of colored tiles, different colors, and each of the colors has a different distribution. So there might be one with 11 tiles in it and others that only have 7 in it. And if you have the majority, more than anybody else in your array, because you're putting these tiles out in front of you in a nice little map, then you're going to earn more points when scoring comes along. I had sort of backed away from this a little bit, but recently somebody at our game group brought it out on the table, and it holds up pretty well. I think I got lost in a lot of the expansion stuff and sort of ignored it for a little bit, but just the base game is so strong. This deserved to win when it won. And still, I really enjoy Alhambra, my number 5.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No. I mean, I like Alhambra a lot. I just don't feel like this is a set collection game.
You're trying to get sets of... I mean, you're trying to get more than...
You're right. Okay, I'm not arguing. I'm thinking it through out loud, that's all. You convinced me.
The more of them you get, the more points you're going to earn.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric's number 7 was Coloretto. I'm going to go with the much superior upgrade to that game for my number 5, Zularetto. Zularetto is Coloretto with a board game wrapped around it, too. It's the same thing. You put animals on these little trucks, or you take a truck with the animals and then add them to your zoo. Trying to get a complete section of lions or... Is there lions in the game? There's definitely
I think so.
Pandas and giraffes and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I just really like Zularedo. It's a good, solid set collection game.
Is that the one that comes in the slightly bigger box? Because I know the Colorado's in the smaller box.
Oh, Colorado's a very small box. Colorado's basically the abstract version of the mechanic in Zularedo.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of theme to Colorado at all. Zularedo has the nice zoo theme and is a little more approachable. Mm-hmm. Colorado's what I learned first, and so I'm more married
I learned Colorado
to that.
first, too. You know, it was a great card game. Then I played Zularedo, and I was like, amen, brother. And it comes in a Ticket to Ride size box.
Yes.
Colorado comes in a no thanks size box.
Yes. Okay,
Correct.
so it's Colorado that I've played. Okay. So my number 5 pick is Millennium Blades. It's so meta, CCG type game. It's like a game about a game, and you're playing that game. That's literally what this makes me think of. So the game is really more card drafting, but you are trying to collect certain types of cards that power your person or abilities in order to win in what they have called tournaments. And in these tournaments, you're placing cards in your tableau to kind of battle against the other players or to acquire end of kind of tournament points. So you play 3 rounds of these tournaments. There's also card drafting phases, which are timed and super stressful. So you're trying to acquire these types of cards to use in the tournament and win the game. I love this game.
I love it a lot, too.
Do you? Okay. I hear a butt.
What?
I knew you were gonna
I hear the
say
butt.
this. I know.
Do you feel like it's a set collection game? I feel like the set collection is actually the meta part of it. Like I'm collecting magic cards.
Which I guess would be more accurate.
Okay, well, if you're doing it in that meta way, I can accept it.
I will then do it in that meta way.
Just to make you happy.
Exactly.
And for everybody who, I don't want to hear later on, Tom's so mean to the guests. I am just bringing out the truth. And I've never been mean to Mandy, even when I ate dessert in front of her.
Oh, that was just horrible.
Yeah, that was pretty mean. All right.
Number 4.
Number 4 is Potion Explosion. You need marbles to complete your potions. You need them in certain combinations, and you do that by grabbing marbles off this cool rack that then collide, and you create cascades and get a bunch of them. I've talked about this a lot. I love this game. My wife really loves this game. Potion Explosion, my number 4.
I'm going to let Mandy go first this time because I believe you have some similarities in your number 4.
My number 4 was also Potion Explosion.
Huzzah!
Good choice, Eric. Good choice.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's definitely a set collection game for sure there. I'm still kind of mind-boggled that there's an app of Potion Explosion.
But didn't it start
Yes.
as like a video or app game and then...
Well, it's based on like every single one of these Bejeweled style type
Right.
games,
Yeah.
of which it looks like there's a gazillion of them from all the ads that pop up in my other games.
But isn't that a no-brainer to make it an app? Like, let's get all these people hooked on the Match 3 games to play our board game.
It just seems very meta.
It's like a snake eating itself.
That's also an app.
I want it.
My number 4 is Tribune. And Tribune, this is a great game where you are trying to control different parts. You know, you're trying to control the patricians or the plebeians or the senators or whatever you're trying to control. And you do that by collecting sets of cards. And you need to beat someone else's set of cards by having more than them or by having higher numbers than they have. So if you have an 8 and a 9, I can beat you with 3 cards. It doesn't matter if they're a 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't matter. But if I have a 1, 2, or 3, the 8 and 9 would beat that also because it is a higher collection of numbers. Very solid game. There are many different ways to collect the cards. You can go to certain spots and draw cards, go to spots and auction for cards, etc. Great game, Tribune.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Valley of the Kings. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, Eric, you put that on your deck builder list. Come on now. But this is not only a deck builder, but it's also about halfway a set collection game. Because the way you score cards is by collecting these different colors of cards that are first useful in your deck and causing you to get more cards and trigger various things. But the way you earn points in the game is by tombing these things, getting them out of your deck, out of your hand. And you need to do this by collecting as many of a particular color as you can, because the points go way up if you manage to get multiples of that particular color. So you're going to be going for more of those yellow cards, but then the other guy knows that you're doing that, and it's going to try and keep those away from you. There is definitely a very strong set collection aspect to Valley of the Kings, my number 3.
My number 3, I'm sad that I'm the only person to have this on their list, and that is Splendor. This one seems so obvious. You are collecting sets of poker chips to pay for cards that give you more poker chips to pay for more cards. It's a smooth system.
It was my number 11.
Ugh. Yeah, no, not for me at all.
Why no Splendor, Mandy?
It's a solo game. I'm sorry. Seriously, I have this as an app. I will play the app to death. I don't see the point of it as a 3-4 player game.
Really?
Nope. It just does. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
No, it's not just you.
It's not
There's
just
lots
you.
of other people who agree, but there are thousands who agree with me. But no. I certainly have to live with Splendor hate all the time in Dice Tower headquarters.
Oh no!
Since I feel like I'm the only person there who likes it, but it is a fantastically smooth game. I really enjoy the speed of how fast it goes. That's Splendor, my number 2.
3.
Yes, 3.
My number 3. Sorry.
So my number 3 is Trajan. Anybody who knows me knows that I love a good Feld, so I definitely have to have it on the list. This is a tough choice. Trajan has a few elements going on. I know people really like this game because of the Mancala element in the game, but you have a variety of ways to obtain points through political influence, trading, military dominion, and other parts of, I guess, what they would call like the Roman culture. There are parts of the game where you are trying to collect sets of these tiles, which can acquire points, but it's also to make sure that you don't lose points throughout the game. So it's not a huge part, but there is definitely set collection in Trajan. One of my favorites. I'm waiting for Tom to say something.
No, I'm not attacking everybody on their incorrect choices every time.
You're just jealous it wasn't your number 3.
No. That's fine. No, I'm not. The only one I had a problem with so far really was which one was
Millennium?
it? Well, Millennium Blades, you said it was meta, so I have to accept that one.
Yes.
Oh My Goods is the one I had a problem with because I feel like it's an engine building game. But that's okay.
All right.
You're a guest. You are allowed to do whatever you want. You could list all deck building games like Derek's doing.
Wait, what?
Oh, wow.
One deck builder. Anyway.
I know. You're right.
Can't live it down.
Number 2.
Number 2 is Bonanza. You are collecting different types of beans, planting them in your fields in order to earn increasing numbers of coins. The more you get in a particular set, the more they're worth. And the ticking clock on this, because you have to plant the first or 1 or 2 cards in your hand each turn, and so there's this pressure to cycle your hand as quickly as possible, make room for the new cards, and you have to make sets quickly in order to score, reach that threshold to earn at least some money when you have to rip out these beans. That pressure is enjoyable. I played this again with some friends, and it had been off the table for a while, and really sort of revitalized that interest. In fact, silly story, I was sorting some old card games, some like small box Amigo card games, and I found an expansion to Bonanza. We have the Al Capone expansion to Bonanza. I have never played that expansion. It got filed away with the other card games and never put with Bonanza. Hey, Future Eric here. Past Eric got so excited he gave the wrong name of the Bonanza expansion. The Al Capone expansion is like a 2-player duel version. This was the High Bone expansion. Still very exciting, but I got the name wrong. Sorry. I don't know how that happened, but now I really want to play Bonanza.
I want to play it. I've never played it. It sounds great.
It's my number 2.
I really hope that the expansion's good, though. Because your enthusiasm, I haven't played it, so I don't know. But your enthusiasm is very high there, sir.
I'm excited.
There's a lot of expansions for Bonanza and spin-offs. Bonanza is a very confusing game sometimes. There's
It can be.
I think there's Bonanza Duel. There's the Al Capone. I think there's several expansions. There's the Bonanza board game, Bean Trader.
Yep,
there's
first Bonanza.
Sissy Bon. It's so confusing. There's so much Bonanza stuff out there. And it's all about beans. Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk?
Yeah, it's exciting.
My number 2 is the Beater of Splendor, and that's the new Century Spice Roads. Wait, Mandy, did we not play this game together?
I didn't play it with you, but man, did I ever see you play it, and you look like you were having a heck of a good time.
It was called something else then. It was called...
Caravan?
Yep.
Something like that.
Caravan, that's right. Oh, I love that game.
It's
love
really
this
good.
game.
Tom told me he was going to play it with me.
Oh.
And then he ran away and played something else.
Oh, that's mean.
And then I found him and he was playing it. And he said, I'm sorry.
I couldn't find you, Eric.
I looked everywhere.
Well, we'll try to get a game of this. Well, here's the deal. I know that they're going to have early copies of this at least at Dice Tower Con.
Which I'm not going to. Oh.
We're not trying to rub this in, Mandy. You still have a chance to come to Dice Tower Cruise.
I really want to come. Let me see if I can get it off work. We'll see what we can do.
But anywho, Century Spice Roads, you're collecting just these different color gems, the cubes basically, different types of spices. And normally, I don't like that, but the game is so quick. You play a card, get the things, change them in other things, pay for this thing. I love how fast it is. It's the same thing I like about Splendor. So maybe you would not like this one either, Mandy, if you don't like Splendor.
No. This game is, where you have it on number 2 is absolutely correct. This game is so much fun, and it's quick. There's not a lot of downtime. I didn't find there was. I found it played really quick, but...
Well, you didn't put it on your list.
Well, because I don't have it, and I played it when it was the old name, so I didn't think it was going to be fair.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, it's coming out soon, and this... I was surprised this didn't get the Spiel des Jahres nominee, actually. I thought it would, or at least be on the recommended list, but still.
But it's not
going
out
to
yet.
Sell a lot. Well, yeah, but the jury had a chance to look at it, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Anyway, my number 2, Century Spice Roads.
So my number 2 is a Vitel Lacerda game. I love his games, and one of my favorites is The Gallerist. So in The Gallerist, you are basically owning a gallery, and you're trying to collect works of art. Now, it pays in this game to collect works of art from the same artist so that you can drive the cost up. So if other players want to buy it, it's going to be quite expensive for them to obtain. And in the end, when you're ready to sell these works of art, you will get more points. This game is so smooth. It's amazing. It's definitely why it's my number 2.
And finally, number 1.
Number 1, Tom already stole a little bit of my thunder on it, but Guildhall is the top one. I mean, the whole point of this game is to make your sets, to get that complete set of all 5 colors of that particular role, which then becomes its own sort of unit that you can then turn in for victory points or special powers. But it all focuses down to that one thing of making 5 of a kind and triggering the abilities. Your abilities get stronger as your set gets larger, and then trading with others to find the cards you're missing. I adore this game. This game is great. I have not pulled the trigger on getting the 3 fantasy sets, just because I've got Guildhall and Job Fair, and I know there are new cards. I really like the Pig Farmer, really. That's what it is. There are all these new cards, but they split them up amongst the 3 fantasy sets, and so I'd have to buy them all if I wanted to get the new cards, and I don't know.
That was kind of a cheesy move on their part. They shouldn't have done that. They should have just made the first set. Well, they had did you have both sets of Guildhall, Eric?
I have Guildhall and Guildhall Job Fair, yes.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You want the new cards, but they're spread out. But here's the thing. When that new set comes out, you can buy that because they're all new.
Okay. I don't know if will they mesh with the original set, or do I need the fantasy version?
Well, you don't need to. You're just going to have really mismatched things, and it's going to be confusing and awkward. And this is a typical AEG thing, right? They did the same thing with Thunderstone, and you could mix them if you wanted to, but you felt like a dork doing it. All right, well, Eric says I stole his thunder for Guildhall. He stole mine for Ticket to Ride, the greatest collection game ever. As you collect tickets and turn them in. And, I love this game. Love it every time I sit down to play Ticket to Ride. I really find it funny when I read online, and there's people who kind of give the idea of like, oh, well, yes, I used to play Ticket to Ride back when I didn't know better games existed.
Oh, man.
It's like, yeah, you come over here. I'll whoop your butt in Ticket to Ride. We'll see who knows better games. But, even after all these years of playing the game, it's now 13 years old, this game, and still a fantastically great game.
You know what? I get the appeal. I honestly understand why people enjoy the game. I totally get it. And they have so many different types of maps, and I think the maps change from place to place. I haven't played all of them, but I definitely see the appeal, and I can understand why it's your number one.
Oh, look, I mean, I don't get a problem with people who don't like the game. If you don't like it, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
I think I have a problem with people who look down on it. Like it's well, that's what I used to do.
Right.
Even if I did make that same argument about Rummy Cube earlier, but I am not a hypocrite, so let's move on.
Right. So my number one game for set collection is Village. This game is worker placement with a bit of set collection. The theme is a little bit odd in the fact that you want to try and kill off your family members.
As quickly as possible. No.
As quickly as possible, exactly. And in this game, the set collection comes in when you're in the market area, which is going to give you points later in the game. I don't know. When I play this game, I usually tend to go with the political or church aspect, but the set collection seems to do well. So workers or your family, I guess, is really important in this game because you want to try and get them as many areas on the board, like in the political house, in the church, in the market, and so forth. So this is one of my favorite games, and I like the fact that it touches on a bit of everything. So that's my number one.
All right, well, let's see what the People's Choice is here. Number 10 for People's Choice is Castles of Burgundy. None of us said that.
No, but it was on my short list.
Yeah, me too.
Sushi Go is number 9. Number 8, Seven Wonders Duel. I guess they're talking about the science in this game.
Yeah, because those are the ones you need the collections for.
It's a weak choice, people. I'm sorry. Number 7 is Sheriff of Nottingham, which I might have put on my list, but I'm not trying to spam lists with this game.
Right. I actually considered this one as well because of the way you're acquiring the cards. You have the whole, truth versus lying aspect to get those cards into your sets. It's kind of novel in the way those are added to your collection. So it was close to my list as well.
5 Tribes is their number 6. I get it. Because you are collecting sets of different things. I feel like that's a minor part of the game, maybe.
I agree.
As opposed to the whole thing's a Mancala type game.
I agree.
But I can see it here. 5 is Splendor. So, yeah. 4 is Jaipur, which is a good thing. I actually considered putting that on my list.
Me too.
Now, 3 is the one I wanted to talk about, and that's Pandemic. Because I don't know if Mandy loves Pandemic.
I have a confession, actually. I have never played Pandemic.
What?
I played Pandemic Cthulhu, but I have never played Pandemic.
So right. Your only introduction to the world of Pandemic is Cthulhu. Okay.
And
all
it
right.
was the same.
Fair enough. But you know what? We can still talk about it in that context.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So in Pandemic, to cure diseases or fight Cthulhu or whatever, you are collecting sets of cards.
Yes.
But yet, every time I looked at it, I'm like, I just can't put that on a set collection list. It just doesn't make sense there. I don't know why.
You don't have that much control over the set collection, I think, because you're drawing just from the top of the deck. You're not selecting certain cards unless you get some, character abilities that can do that sort of thing. But
exactly.
You're basically getting cards and then maybe trading them, trying to get them in the hands of the right person. So, yeah, I feel it, but that's not as much the emphasis, I think. I think more of the emphasis is on treating the board, at least in the turn-by-turn aspect of the game. It's more of the overarching thing to come up with a set.
No, again, I understand, though, that this is on people's lists. I'm just giving my excuse as to why I did not pick it.
I considered it, but yes, I don't think the set collection is as strong here as it is in many of the others we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 2 is Seven Wonders. Again, I think for the science cards, I guess you could say you're collecting sets of other cards for victory
points. For the purple cards, yeah.
Yeah.
And then number 1, Ticket to Ride. So, yes.
Yes.
And vote-wise, smash hit. Ticket to Ride wins a lot of these top 10, so yeah. Well, anyway, folks, that is it. That is it for our top 10 lists of set collection games. That's it for our episode. We're really glad that Mandy came on board. Now she's been on the Dice Tower audio and Dice Tower video shows.
Huzzah!
Thanks
super famous.
for having me. It's so much fun. I hope to come back soon.
Yes. Well, soon is relative. It could be a year at the rate we're going through people, but we would love to have you back on again. And also thanks to Eric, who edits all this together and groans every time he does it, but it wouldn't sound nearly as good without him. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Mandy.
And I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode number 507 was recorded on May 25th, 2017. Coming up next week, Tom and I talk about playing spooky and scary games with kids. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Taxidermy services provided by Animals on Boards. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at coolstuffinc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, email us at dicetower@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including the Out of Game podcast, 20 Minutes of Filler, the Snakes Cast, the D6 Generation, the Family Gamers, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, the Portal Gaming Podcast, and Board Game Breakfast at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming.
Okay, so we talked about all this food. I mean, there was sushi, there was pizza,
plums,
there was hamburgers and plums.
Well, I mean, that's a full set. We get 10 points for that, right?
Agreed.
Yes! We won the food game. Oh, wait. So that's what I'll tell Laura. I was trying to collect all the cookies. It's bonus pounds.
Yes.
I can't use everything.
Oh, that's funny.